It is so important to know who you are and be confident in that, because people will try to make you feel like you aren't who you say you are, because who you are doesn't benefit them. And when you get to that point, that's when you have to take a survey of yourself, reassess yourself, and be like, I know I'm not this way. I know I'm not that person. I know this about me. And what can help is looking at other relationships in your life, other connections in your life. This was the only connection in my life that was this difficult. And this person also has fallen out with a lot of other people and have difficulties with other people. And it's not to throw them under the bus at all. I just had to do a survey for myself, because I'm like, let me sort this shit out, because I don't like how it's making me feel. I know I'm not a bad person.
Excuse me, can I please talk to you for a minute?
What up, girlfriends? It's your girl, mindset and intuitive coach, Kindall D. And today's podcast is going to be about boundaries and people pleasing, because I find that they essentially go hand in hand. And what prompted me to want to talk about this is some things I had going on in my personal life, how my healing journey has been so far when it comes to these two areas, and just some things I want to talk about. Talked about it a little bit already on my Patreon, where I do like my bonus podcast episodes, which is whenever a thought or feeling or something comes to me, I'll jump on there right then and there and record it, because I want to get it out. And then sometimes if someone requests a longer podcast on it with more detail, then I do so. But bonuses and everything is usually on there like once, maybe twice a week. So check that out if you want to listen to that, because it's some personal things here that I may not really want to talk about, only because it's an open for everyone to see. My Patreon is not for it's open to everyone to see, So I am going to talk about my personal things, but I just may leave out a little bit more of what I did, just because I don't like talking nasty or talking about people, especially if they're not here to defend themselves. And it's nothing bad about someone. It's just I don't want to implement anyone in my life. I don't want to, even though this person kind of pissed me off. This is the short of what I can say. I understand the situation better now, but I still don't want to. I just don't throw people under the bus. I don't talk bad about them, even in situations like that. But anyway, let me get to the point and not just ramble on. So, let's talk about boundaries and people pleasing. So, I guess what I want to start with is like the people pleasing aspect. So, when it comes to people pleasing, essentially what it is and where it probably has come from is somewhere in your upbringing or somewhere in your childhood. Now, this doesn't mean that you had to have had a bad childhood. It just could have been a point to where it's two different things it could have been. And I'll explain both. So one, you may have picked up from an early age or learned from an early age that you get the best results when you people please. Or you were made to feel like it's important that you please your parents because you like the result better than disappointing them. Or they always told you, held you to a higher regard, held you to a very high regard and high expectations. And so you were learned from a very, very early age that I must people please. I must do this. This is like how I'm supposed to operate. And so you may have been excessively praised for being good, like a good person, like a good child, or kind, to where it's like you just became that. You became like, this is how I have to be. I can't have any other feeling or way, or I can't do anything to rock the boat to show that I'm not how they are perceiving me to be. Instead of your parents or caregivers perceiving you as a whole individual that makes mistakes, that doesn't always live to expectations, and doesn't have, just such a high regard for how you're supposed to be, then you tend to grow into being a people pleaser. It's just gonna how it's gonna happen. And then there's the way of you being a people pleaser. If you learned that displeasing people or your parents or caregivers, displeasing them caused you to feel unsafe, caused you to feel like you were a disappointment, caused you to feel feelings that you didn't want to feel, basically. And from a young age, you may have realized that, okay, I cannot displease them. I cannot disappoint someone because this is going to happen. And you didn't feel safe. So in order for you to feel safe, you said, let me just make sure I people please at all times. Let me make sure that I, don't rock the boat in the same sense. And you learn to walk on the eggshells, so to speak. And so I found this post that said basically what people pleasing looks like in adulthood. So this can give you an idea if you maybe are a people pleaser or not. You may or may not know that. And it says, in adulthood, people pleasing can take many forms and may manifest as a preoccupation with what others think about you, need for approval and praise, trouble expressing your own needs and feelings, a preoccupation with how others are feeling, difficulty speaking up and setting boundaries. Yeah, as you see, they go hand in hand. I could not talk about boundaries without talking about people pleasing, so I decided to kind of combine it. So, a lot of us probably do care what people think. I mean, we're just gonna do that shit, like, no matter what happens. And sometimes you can be so preoccupied with it that you have a hard time being yourself. You have a hard time being authentic. You have a hard time connecting with who you are because you're too busy trying to make sure that everyone else is pleased with who you are and keep thinking the same good thoughts about you. So you're basically trying to control what other people think about you. Because reality is you don't know what people are thinking about you unless they tell you. And when it comes to a preoccupation with how people are feeling, it's kind of the same thing because it's like, well, no, it's not the same thing. This is actually a good point I want to lead into because this really speaks to my personal life. It's, a preoccupation with how others are feeling. That's essentially what a lot of people pleasers feel because it's like you people please because you really care about how they feel and you don't want to hurt their feelings. But something that I've realized and I've learned being on this journey, this healing journey of people pleasing and coming out of that and coming and learning how to set more boundaries because I was losing myself. I felt like I was being self-negligent a few years back. And so I had to really nip a lot of things in the bud, and it caused a lot of friction in some of my other relationships and my connections with people, I should say. And so it caused me to feel like, I'm not caring about their feelings like I used to. It caused me to feel like I'm a mean person. It caused me to feel like even that, well, I never really felt that I was selfish, but I was called that. And that really, really, really got to me. And so, how can I say this? So it's like, moving on, I guess we can move on into the boundaries part. We're going to go back and forth because this all goes together. And so, for you, it may be hard for you to set boundaries because you care so much about people's feelings and you don't want to hurt their feelings. Setting boundaries may feel unsafe for you because for me, it felt unsafe. And it can feel unsafe for numerous reasons. It could be in the sense that, it won't be pleasing to someone in your life. And so you just don't do it. You just try to give your all and be okay with just saying yes and always saying yes to them. Or maybe in a sense of you feel like there's abandonment that's going to happen. And you are afraid of that. Like you may feel like that, okay, of course, setting boundaries may mean cutting some people off out of my life. And I don't want that to happen because I don't want to feel abandoned. I want to keep them in my life. And so you may have difficulty doing it. You may have difficulty just speaking up. And so really, I was like all of these things. And just on a personal tip for my story is of how I relate to this And why I'm talking about this is that, so recently I had a falling out with someone. I'm just going to say someone. I'm not going to go into too much detail about who that someone is. But it was someone that is close to me. And so we had a falling out. And I believe, honestly, it's going to remain a falling out. And that's typically not like how I like to do things. I typically like to make amends and work through it. But I feel like strongly that me trying to make the amends will go back to how things were, to where they were basically calling me selfish because of my boundaries behind my back, being disgruntled at me because I'm not doing like I used to do for them. I feel like it would go back to that person being codependent on me or very dependent on me. I just didn't, because I feel like this person has not dealt with their own things and trauma within their own lives. And so they're still kind of dependent on other people. And a quick break in this part, I want to talk about that because I find that if you don't have your own set boundaries, if you don't set boundaries for yourself, and if you are a people pleaser, you're going to hold a lot of resentment towards people that aren't people pleasing and do have boundaries. Because you're going to look at it, it's like, I want people to treat me how I treat them. I don't have boundaries. Why do they have boundaries? Why do they say no if I never say no? Or you may look at it as like, I'm trying to please them and be nice to them, but why are they still setting boundaries with me? Why aren't they as nice to me as I is nice to them? You're going to hold a lot of resentment that your plan, quote unquote, didn't work. And so when you're on that end of it to where you don't have boundaries and all you know is people pleasing because you're codependent on people, it's going to cause resentment because you don't have that for yourself. And I remember I thinking to myself and telling this person like, hey, it's healthy for people to have boundaries. And this person even made a post on Facebook once before explaining how I was teaching them about boundaries and she's trying to teach, other people. I'm trying not to say the person. I don't like to do that. I've almost got close to saying to give a hint to who this person is. If you know me, then you probably know who I'm talking about. But if you don't know me, you're not supposed to, but that doesn't matter. Let me stop explaining myself. Stop. But what I'm getting at is that I explained to them that it is okay for people to have boundaries. You should too. Like that saying where people be like, everybody makes time for who they want. I'm like, and you should. Everybody should only be making time for people for who they want. It shouldn't be to where you're forcing yourself to make time for people. Because the thing about it is, and this is the part that kind of sucks when it comes to setting boundaries, you might hurt some people's feelings. You just are. Even if this person has boundaries of their own, they're pretty healthy, healed, even if they're not a people pleaser, you're going to hurt some people's feelings. You're going to disappoint some people. And this kind of goes back to what I'm saying to when you were a child and you felt unsafe with that happening. You have to realize now that you are an adult, you are able to control the environment a little more, and you have a duty to yourself to take care of yourself and not put everyone else before you. And so that's the part that I'm going to just be honest and say it sucks when it comes to setting boundaries. It's hard to set boundaries because of that. But I know I must do it because how I look at it is that I would rather be completely honest with myself and what I need and completely honest with you so that you don't come in expecting certain behavior from me. I would rather be straight up and honest with you and let the cards lay where it may lay. And what I'm meaning is like, say for instance, if I say yes to someone, like, yeah, okay, because I feel obligated or I'm people pleasing and I don't want to hurt their feelings. So I'm like, okay, yeah. Like I say yes to help them with something. And then when I go to help them with it, I'm half-assing it. I have an attitude with them. They're getting mad at me because of the attitude I have. They don't understand. And it's because I lied. And it's because I'm trying to people please. But now, either way, no one's pleased and you're upset. And so, there's something else I want to explain, because it's like, you cannot expect people to be how you want them to be. All you can do is expect them to be who they are. And honestly, you should only want them to be who they are. And I know it may hurt feelings, because it's like, damn, I wanted them to be this way so that we can have a connection. But sometimes it don't work that way. And it's okay. Because how I see it is, you just have to make adjustments. Because the thing is, like, someone could either lie to you, and then you have some sort of connection, but it not be really authentic, because one person is kind of half-assing it. Or it can be to where you accept that, okay, they can't do this, and this is who they are, and it's okay. And so that's where it becomes difficult, because it's like, okay, I'm trying to do the right thing here, and it's becoming difficult because I don't want to hurt feelings. But you're going to hurt feelings. That's just what it is. And what has helped me with this part, y'all, this is the most important part to me. What really helped me with the part of setting boundaries and no longer being a people pleaser was understanding who I am. And who I am, and being confident in that. Let me explain what I mean by this. So, you have to understand that you are not what other people say you are. You are not who they say you are. If it strikes a nerve with you, that's worth you looking into to see why it struck such a nerve with you. Like, for example, when I changed and I started setting more boundaries and saying no to more things because I needed more of my own energy. And I just grew tired of just, every person, every people pleaser that doesn't have boundaries has a breaking point eventually. And I had mine like a couple of years ago, where I needed me the most. I was going through so much mentally. And it's hard to explain when you're going through something mentally to someone, especially when they're used to you doing so much for them. And I remember the same person I talked about earlier on the show, we had a falling out before over boundaries. And they became disgruntled at me, threw a fit at me, and it became a big whole debacle. And I definitely understand this person's underlying feelings, underlining the anger at me. But how I've looked at it and learned to look at it with everyone is that I am not responsible for helping you to understand your emotions. I'm not responsible for getting you to a place of understanding why you're reacting the way you're reacting. I am not your therapist. I am not here to do that. Yes, I am a coach, and I coach people to help that I get paid to help. But it's like, I would be exhausted if I treated everyone in my life like that. And plus, you cannot get someone to a place emotionally and on their healing journey. They have to get there on their own. That's exhausting in itself, because in so many words, I've always tried to tell this person and tell them, this, and that, I see that you like boundaries and this, and I've always tried to be that for that person. But it was always one ear out the other, or they'll understand it for a minute and it's out the window. And so years later, the same thing came up, and it was recent. And that's when the falling out happened, because this time it was worse. And I'm not going to say how it was worse, because that gives too much information out. But it was worse because it was like in person. And it was just, I was tired, because I knew that I was trying my best with this person, trying to be there for them the best way I could, and also be there for me, because I had to set boundaries, and they seemed like they were okay with that on the surface, but deep down they weren't, and I could tell because of the lashing out at me. And so with that, I had to say final straw. Like, I can't keep putting myself through this. No ill will or hate towards the person, but it's like, I have to protect my peace. And the place I am at on my journey, on my growth, I don't feel they're just there yet. And it's not my job to help them get there and to understand some things. It's just not my job, not my place. And this person called me selfish, but not to my face, behind my back. And then kind of lied about it. And the thing with that is that if I didn't know who I am, and if I wasn't confident in who I am, that's why I said it is so, 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 so important to know who you are and be confident in that, because people will try to make you feel like you aren't who you say you are, because who you are doesn't benefit them. And when you get to that point, that's when you have to take a survey of yourself, reassess yourself, and be like, I know I'm not this way. I know I'm not that person. I know this about me. And what can help is looking at other relationships in your life, other connections in your life. This was the only connection in my life that was this difficult. And this person also has fallen out with a lot of other people and have difficulties with other people. And it's not to throw them under the bus at all. I just had to do a survey for myself, because I'm like, let me sort this shit out, because I don't like how it's making me feel. I know I'm not a bad person. And I know I be there for people. But it's like, I'm not going to be there if I'm your only person and you're depending solely on me. That's a lot on me. And I feel like you don't have any concern for me and only concern for yourself. There's something else that people pleasers and people without boundaries have to realize as well. It's like you cannot try to be everything to everybody and nothing to yourself, because everyone has a duty to take care of themselves. Everyone. And half the time the people you're trying to please, they are taking care of themselves. They got their own back. And now they got you on board to get their back too. So they got everybody having their back. But who in the hell got your back? Not you. And so I started looking at it that way. It's like, even the person I was talking to, that I'm referencing on this show, I'm like, they have some boundaries. I will say they have some boundaries. They have said no before, and they have their own things. And it's like, so you can do it, but I can't. So you just want it all for yourself. You want your little bubble and boundaries and whatever you got going for you, and you want me to accommodate you as well, no matter what. No ifs, ands, buts about it. It's not fair. And so that's what helped me to really break it down, because I'm like, I owe it to myself. I have to take care of myself. There's nobody else that's going to take care of me. And if somebody doesn't like it, that means they don't give really a damn about me. If they can't handle my no, and they can't handle my boundaries, and if they don't like my assertiveness, if they don't like that, that's not a me problem. That's a problem that they're going to have to survey themselves. Just like I know how to dive into my own emotions and process them, they can do the same. And so I had to start really looking at it like that, instead of looking at it as like I'm just Captain Save-A-Ho, I guess, so to speak. Not calling nobody a hoe, but y'all get what I'm saying. Like, I can't be everything to everybody and save everybody and tailor to everyone's feelings. Like, it's exhausting. And you have to realize that you're going to lose some people. But think about it. If the people you lose due to you saying no, setting boundaries, being honest about what you can and can't do, were they really a loss? Probably not. And so, yeah, once I got to really, really confident in who I am, it helped me to be able to set more boundaries and face the rebuttal I may get. I don't get rebuttal from everybody. It's just this pretty much one particular person. There was someone else in my life that got a little rebuttal from it as well, but I was able to go to them and talk about it, which is what I like, because it's like, I understand that boundaries sometimes may hurt people's feelings, and I'm okay with that. Not okay with hurting their feelings. Let me explain. I understand that sometimes setting a boundary may rub somebody the wrong way, and I'd rather be honest with you because I care about you. I'm doing a disservice to you and myself by just lying and acting like it ain't nothing. That's being fake. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm going to set a boundary and I'm going to say no if I have to. And so it was someone else in my life I had to say no to, and it hurt their feelings. But they were able to express that. And so I had a conversation with them, a short conversation, and I explained it, and we came to agreement. And I felt like it's still, in the end, probably their feelings were a little hurt. But I feel like talking about it made them realize that, okay, I wasn't deliberately trying to do that. And maybe that's something they realize that they have to kind of try to mend on their own. If I'm putting it correctly. And we're okay. And so it's like, that's what I'm meaning. It's like when you look at other areas of your life and you really assess who you are, you really know who you are. Anyone that gets upset at your boundary or you not being a people pleaser, anyone that gets upset at that, it's a them problem. It's really a you problem. Not a you problem, but I'm saying you're gonna tell them it's a you problem. It's not a, y'all know what I'm saying. It's really a them problem. Getting tongue tied. I'm getting deep in this. I got some more to get deep on. So y'all just hold on. And so when you really get to knowing who you are, you won't let that affect you. Like, I've come to the conclusion that I'm not selfish, but to someone like the person that I had a falling out with, if I were them, I wouldn't like me either. If I were them, I would call me selfish too. Only because I only know how to depend on other people. I haven't learned how to depend on myself. Or only because I know that I feel like abandonment when no one wants to do what I need them to do for me. I feel abandoned, or I only feel love if someone is doing for me like, I need them to. And I would listen to this person, how they talked about other people in their lives. They will always gloat on, is that a word? They will always boast, I guess, about how, so-and-so doing this for me. So-and-so do this for me. Oh, so-and-so came on through and did this for me. It's always someone doing something for them. And that's how they are. It's like they had a relationship with someone in their life that they was pissed off because they were always doing so much for that person, but they were still, quote unquote, getting shitted on, and that person wouldn't come through for them. And so I see the dynamic, and it's such an unhealthy dynamic I couldn't be a part of anymore. And I knew kind of straying away from that would make our relationship estranged, and now it is. And I don't think there's no way to mend it, and it just is what it is. There's no hate, but you're gonna have some of that happen, y'all. That's what I wanted. That's why I set out to say that. It's like, you're gonna have it happen, and in that time and in that moment, I want you to process who you are, for sure. Maybe even ask other people that you can trust in your life, what they feel about you and whatnot when it comes to certain things like this. Because I need you to be really confident in yourself when you're setting these boundaries and when you're trying to stop people pleasing. I need you to be okay with disappointing people. Because to be honest, you just are. You just are. And I feel like I've always been authentic and honest. I've never really been quite a people pleaser. I've had a small aspects of it, I would say. But I feel like I've always been honest. And I feel like that has always rubbed people the wrong way. And not honest in the sense of like, I'm going to tell you this to hurt your feelings. But it's like, if it's no, I'm going to say no. But it's always like certain people in your life that you don't feel good about doing it to, and you try to. So it's going to be certain people in your life that you find yourself people pleasing more than others. And those are the relationships you really need to assess. Like, I don't want people pleasing nowhere in my life. And it was a few loose ends where I felt like I was still doing it, and it was really tiring me out. So, yeah. So, I think I want to get into some more of, like, I guess, how to set boundaries so that you'll know and what can help you with setting boundaries. Because I feel like that's important, and I don't feel like I talked about this. So, I'm trying to find my notes. You should have had this ready. Where is it? Okay. Here are some ways that I guess can help you, so to speak, to uphold your boundaries and set boundaries and know when to set boundaries and things like that. So, first off, boundaries, I want you to understand about them, is they're not requests. Boundaries are not for other people. Boundaries are solely for you. So I want you to first get that in your mind and own that. That a boundary is like, they're like the bouncers to your life. Like, you know, they have bouncers to get in the club. Like, hold up, you can't get in because of whatever. It's kind of like that. It's an honor to yourself. It's saying yes to yourself, so to speak, and maybe no to someone else. It's not you trying to be mean, rude. It's just you doing what you need to do for yourself sometimes. Well, really all times. And so think about boundaries in that sense. Don't think about them as a request. Because the thing is with boundaries, it may or may not get people to, quote unquote, act right. It may change their behavior. It may not. But it's not what it's for. And also, essentially, look at boundaries as something that's there to help you to better the relationship with someone. And you can even explain that. Like, that goes into, I guess, my first way to help you set boundaries. It's like, if you're setting it with someone new, or even someone you love, someone in your life, you can just be clear about it and say, hey, I'm setting this boundary because I don't like this, that, and that, or whatever it is you got to set with them. You're speaking up on it to them. And what you can preface it with saying is that I'm only doing this because I love our connection and I want it to stay strong, and I want us to be on one accord with each other. I want us to have healthy communication. You can say something like that along the lines of that, because that's essentially what it is. It's because you're doing it because you care about the relationship and you want to keep it tight knit. You want to keep it close. And sometimes even with you explaining all of this deal may cause them to say okay up front, but then still be like, what? I didn't know the boundary was going to be like this, and they may get upset. It's just going to happen. It's okay. You're doing your part. This all goes into you doing your part regardless of how they act or what they do, because you want to make sure that you are honoring who you are at all times. If you feel like you are a good-hearted, nice person and whatnot, then you want to make sure that you are being that way, even when setting boundaries. So in case anything go left and they have a fit, or they say you're this, you're mean, you're a bitch, you selfish, whatever they say, you can reassess yourself and be like, hold up. I know I didn't come to them in a bad way. I don't feel like I did anything mean. I did not disrespect them. I did not, you can come to yourself and be real about how you set the boundary and what you did. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's always important to always do this with, I guess, finesse or tact. And so what I mean by that part, to go in further with setting the boundaries, it's like when you get ready to say it, make sure you are saying it as, I don't want to say demand. Excuse me. Make sure you are saying it in a way of, it's not a request, it's not a demand. It's I'm drawing a blank. But I don't know what to call it. But look at it as something that you're doing for you, so to speak. And so when you go in to say the boundary, you're giving them basically, this will happen if you do blank. For example, say if you're having a conversation with someone and they start yelling and screaming at you, and you're just trying to have a civil, regular conversation, and you don't like it because it scares you, or it makes you feel frightened, it makes you feel unsafe, whatever. You can just clearly let them know, I understand you're upset, but you talking to me this way makes me feel blank. And if you cannot control your temper or how you're talking to me, I won't be able to continue this conversation. You get what I'm saying? You're saying, I won't be able to do this. Not, I might just stop talking to you if you keep on. No. You're not making some kind of threat. You're just making a statement of what's going to happen at the cause of their, what's going to happen as a result of how they're treating you or how they're acting. And so you look at boundaries as like that. It's a way to honor what you need and to keep the bad out, so to speak. And to care about yourself. Give a damn about yourself, like I like to say. And so that's one way you can set it. Because I know it's not always just so easy to do it. And I know you're rather not feel like a bad person for doing it. But that's why I say it's always best to do it with tact. Always best to do it in that sense of like, if you keep doing this, I won't be able to do this. Or I need this for me because of this. it's almost like you're not explaining it, but I would say save this for people in your life that you really care about, or that you really, that you really just don't want to. Save for the close people in your life. I put it that way. Somebody random off the street, if a no can be a simple sentence like, no, I'm not comfortable with that. You don't have to explain. They don't know you. But people that you may have to have a continued relationship with, someone close to you, someone in close connection, I feel like it is okay to do it in that sense, because you care about them and you care about their feelings, and you know that boundaries can hurt feelings. Boundaries are going to hurt feelings. That's just simple as that. They're not going to always have a favorable response. And sometimes they will. And I want to talk about that too, because sometimes the connection you're looking for with someone is just a boundary away. Like, you may not like something they're doing, but because you are in your people pleasing mode, or you're afraid to speak up, you may not speak up. But sometimes people are a lot easier to speak up about. People are not just going to know off the bat how to treat you, or what you don't like, or what to do. That's a mistake a lot of people make as well, especially a people pleaser. They feel like, okay, I please people. I make sure I move lightly in eggshells around people. Why aren't they doing it to me? They should just know that this hurts my feelings. People are not always going to know that. But sometimes they may be very understanding and not realize that they're doing that. It's so easy to be like, hey, it's not so easy. It may not be so easy, but it can make all the difference if you just speak up about the boundary. Like, hey, I don't really like when you do this. I would prefer that you don't. If not, then I won't be able to continue our friendship, relationship, whatever. Say it in a sense like that. Or just tell people like, hey, I can't talk or communicate when you do this. I can't, just let them know. Or just, I don't like that. And you'd be surprised. Some people will be met with, oh, I didn't realize. I apologize. So that's also a reason why you want to look into setting boundaries and being more open about them, and not being so scared to say how you feel about things. Because, like I said, while you're so busy trying to people please somebody else, who is trying to people please you? People are not, if you're a people pleaser, people are not going to treat you the way that you treat them. Because not everybody else is a people pleaser. And they should not be. You should not be. And so, another thing to help with boundary setting is you have to also respect your own boundaries. And respecting your own boundaries is you basically no longer associate with someone that has disrespected your boundaries, so to speak, or won't respect your boundaries, or don't care to honor your boundaries. And that's what I feel like I had to do with the person that in my life that I am no longer in relationship with. Because I felt like the place in their life, and it's not because they purposely are trying to be this way. I think they just haven't healed through some things to be different. And they aren't really self-aware. And they're more self-aware of how everybody else treats them, but they're not self-aware of how they treat themselves, and or who they are, or how they even treat others. And so, with that being said, I had to respect my own boundaries when it came to that, because I knew that it was going to keep being an unpeaceful situation. And that's not what I'm looking for in my life right now. And it sucks that it had to be that way, but I don't feel there's any way to resolve it because of where they're at in their lives. And so, boundaries will come with you having to adjust your behavior so that you can respect your own boundaries. Because if you don't respect your own boundaries, they are not going to respect your boundaries. So you have to basically you have to do it first to yourself. Respect your own boundaries. Set boundaries for yourself and respect them yourself. That's what I would say. And that part can be hard, because it's like you will hope that you setting the boundary will make someone act a certain way, or act right, so to speak. You would hope that you setting the boundary would just clear it up, but sometimes it won't. And you have to make good on what you said, the boundary you set. Yeah. And I say yeah like that because that's a tough part. That was a tough part for me. But it became less of a struggle to do that part by realizing that I needed to do it for me. By realizing that it starts with me. And realizing that I didn't want to be that self-negligent person I was years ago. Because I remember how it felt. I was like really down and depressed. Like really, really down and depressed. And I talked about this on, I can't remember what podcast. I talked about it before. How about maybe 3-4 years later I was going through a lot. And I took even just about a year off from work to go to a therapist from work-related stress. And then it was just really work-related stress because a lot of other stress in my life was going on. So it was just stress everywhere. And it just really got me down. And I felt so self-negligent, like I was just losing myself. And I didn't have energy to help anybody else. Not even this person that I'm talking about. Which this person did reach out to me during that time to ask me to help them with something. And I remember for the first time saying no to them. Because I felt like they didn't even ask me about me. They asked me, you still off work? And I was trying my best to keep this from them. That's how I realized that me wanting to keep something like that from them meant that some boundaries need to be set there. There was some things I was learning while out from work. And I was, doing a lot of research and reflecting on my own. And I was like, yeah, that's where the boundary needs to be set. I see where one of the leaks are. And so I remember telling them like, yeah, I'm off work. And I would start telling them about, I'm off work. Yeah, I don't know when I'm going back, this and that. Telling them about what's going on with me. I thought they were really concerned about me. They reached out to me because they just wanted to see if I could help them with something. And I told them, no, I didn't take off to do this. And I wasn't doing anything. Like, I wasn't like physically doing anything, but I was tired. And I just was like, no. And the fact that they didn't even ask about me. And it's like I said, this person, I don't think is deliberately trying to be a bad person. It's just that they are so unaware of how they move and how they do. And when I said that, it was like, oh, I'm just in desperate need right now. That's all they said. They still didn't ask about me. Went on about their way. And I guess got somebody else. And I think around that time is when they started calling me selfish behind my back. And after processing that, I realized, okay, I see why. And so you'll have that happen. And that's what makes it probably hard for you because you have an unsafe, if it still feels unsafe because you have unsafe people around you. And to me, I feel like people that are unsafe are the ones that are not in tune with themselves, not very self-aware, don't have any boundaries, not emotionally intelligent, not even emotionally available. I feel like those people are unsafe. Like people you feel like you got to walk on eggshells around. And I always felt like that with them. That's why I was always saying yes. Because I'm like, oh, they really need me. I got to do whatever they say. And yeah, that time I said no. That was years ago. And I think that's where it all went downhill. Slowly. As I started saying no more and more. Because I feel like this person, you give them an inch, they take them out. And it was always just something they needed all the time. And that's when you need to set a boundary. Because they're not going to. And so you see what I'm saying? It's like if you do not set a boundary for yourself, you will be caught up in a dynamic like that to where you are now neglecting yourself and what you need because you're caught up in someone that you're trying to keep pleased because they are unsafe and you feel unsafe saying no because you know what the rebuttal will be. And now it has gotten to the point to where the rebuttal is we're no longer in really a connection. We're no longer in relationship. And I didn't want that to happen, but to be honest, I'm much more peaceful now. Used to be nervous when they call because I'm like, what are they gonna need today? What are they going to ask of me today? What do I have to say no to today? Because to be honest, yes, you have to have boundaries, but who wants to continue to have to set the same boundary? To have to keep on telling someone no? To have to keep on, like, who wants to do that? Like, this, like, feel me on this. Like, the thing with boundaries, I feel like it's like, yes, I know I need to set boundaries. I know. But I feel like I don't want to have to keep on setting the same boundary. I don't want to feel like I have to always say no because you're always asking. It's versus like other people in my life. Like I have a tight knit friend group. I don't always have to say no to them because they're not always asking for something. So whenever they do ask for something, every blue moon, it's yes. Yes, of course. Why not? I got you. And that's that's to me what makes a healthy relationship when you're not so codependent on each other. Because when you continue to hear no, 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 you're gonna feel a little slighted. I mean, just anybody in life is gonna feel slighted by that. Like who wouldn't if you're constantly hearing no, no, yes every now and then. But maybe it's because you're asking for shit too much. And so that's something else that I felt like it's important with this, because it's like you have to assess the people in your life and be like, okay, if I'm having to set tight knit boundaries with this person, maybe they don't really need to be in my life like that, or maybe I need to limit my access. Because it's like you find yourself constantly having to tell them no, constantly have to set a boundary, constantly having to, that can be exhausting. Like, yes, we need to set boundaries, but who wants to always do it? Like, who wants to constantly be in that state of, I'm feeling nervous because here we go, I got to set this boundary with this person, I got to say this. Who wants to feel like that? Because I'm going to be honest, it's not always, you're not going to feel always happy and good about setting a boundary. Like, I'm happy to tell people fuck off and no. Not everybody feels that way. I can be nonchalant to a degree, but I'm also human, and I don't want to purposely have to hurt someone's feelings, or not purposely, but you know what I'm saying. So yeah, that's also a major component of that. And to deal with that, what helped me to deal with that is to just basically continue to set the boundary with them, and to, I feel like with that relationship, if in a relationship like that, if someone you're constantly having to tell no or set boundaries with, you can continue to do that, but eventually you may have to cut that relationship completely off. Because if you find yourself constantly setting the same boundary, you're going to have to just accept that that may not be something healthy to have in your life. And then that goes kind of to my next point. You'll have to adjust your expectations of that person in the relationship you have with that person. So, yeah. That's the hard part. Is that you have to adjust your expectations of them. And just accept them for who they are, essentially. That's really what it's about. Yeah, I think that's all the points I had, really, because I kind of ran them all together. I'm sorry, y'all. But the other point was basically, when someone is like that, to where you constantly have to set the same boundary, you're just going to have to limit your time around them. And you see how I'm getting with saying some of this stuff, because this stuff is not easy. Another y'all, I hope y'all didn't click on this hoping that I was going to give you some easy solutions to setting boundaries and getting over people pleasing. It's not going to be easy. The people pleasing aspect, for me, I guess I'll touch on that a little bit before I end it, is that I'm never really a people pleaser to just in general, but when it comes to healing that part, it's really, really getting to the root of who you are, I would say. Because you may not know exactly who you are, because, well, no, that's not what I'm trying to say. I would say this. People pleasing can lead to you being inauthentic to yourself. Because you're basically trying to be everything to everyone else but yourself. And so to touch on that a little bit, what helped me with that is that I really wanted to be authentic in in every area in my life and in every connection, even if it was tough to do. I knew that like the end point or the light at the end of the tunnel would be I was honest and authentic and I was straight up. That's something that meant more to me than being fake in the front, being fake with it up, to be like, yeah, yeah, but it's really no, no. And I knew that even me hearing no at first and being rejected at first can hurt, but I know in the end it's better for someone to be honest with you. And so once you start to really honor honesty, transparency in your connections, this part won't be as hard to do. It will still feel a little uneasy, but it won't be as hard. Because an example for me is I don't really want to say much about this person either, because these are personal people that I do care about in my life. But it was someone else recently, that the one I told you that I had was able to have a good conversation with and come to amends with after I set the boundary. So, how can I say this? It was something that we were planning together. And I had some other people I was planning some things with. And they wanted to come along. And the other people, my other friends, don't really know them like that. I know them and love them, but my friends didn't, and I respect that. So they had boundaries and was like, I'm not comfortable with this, or that. And they weren't being mean. They were just saying, I'm not comfortable with that. And so I had to go and tell them, like, hey, it can't go this way. We can't do it this way because my group over here, they're uncomfortable. And I explained to them, that it wasn't because of, who you are or anything like that. It's just that they were uncomfortable. It's not you. And that's what I explained to them afterwards. And so, I guess what I'm getting at is that I was nervous to tell them the truth. And I even kind of said a sugar-coated truth to pacify them. But then they kept going like, oh, okay, and then this, and this. I'm like, oh, shoot. I said, that's what I realized. I got to be straight up. I cannot be fake up front and have them thinking and feeling a certain way and then it be something totally different. I cannot do that to them. It's going to hurt to say the truth, but I feel like it's even more dishonest and it's bad on my part to lie and people please up front because I'm afraid to be honest. And so that's what kind of started helping me get into my people pleasing. And this was like a test of it. And so how I did it was I just said, I told myself, like, I'm just going to be honest. And I went honest, and I tried to put it as nicely as possible, because you don't have to be brutally honest and mean. I never want to be that way. So I explained it, and it still hurt their feelings, and I had to talk about it anyway. And we got to amends. I like when that happens, because I feel like I'm a mature person to talk to and talk things out. I'm going to hear your feelings out. I'm not going to undermine you, but I am going to walk away from you if you are just throwing slander at me, being angry, shouting, yelling, not saying how you really feel, putting all the blame on me. Nope, we're not going to do that. So we had a discussion and we made amends. And so what I'm saying is that situation made me realize how much I really, really want to always be honest. And so that's something you can take away from this. If you feel like you are a people pleaser, have a difficult time setting boundaries, have a difficult time saying no, I want you to think about what it means to you to be honest and have people be honest with you. If you find it hard for you to hear no from people, if you find it hard for you to hear honesty from people and you'd rather them lie to you, like I know some people may rather someone lie to them to make them feel good than to just be themselves and be honest. So they're expecting what they want out of people instead of who they are. And so you have to get to a point to where you'd rather someone show you who they truly are, be truthfully honest, transparent up front, so that you can make the decision about them in your life. And so that's what really, 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 really helped me to deal with any type of people pleasing I may have had in my life. I don't feel like I was ever to the sense to where I was trying to people please everyone, but I can feel it slip up sometimes and creep in, because it is uncomfortable sometimes. But that's how you can kind of help it, is that you have to have that talk with yourself and like, I need to be honest right here. Because people pleasing and constantly staying in that state of it, y'all, can really affect your self-worth. And really cause you to not be your authentic self. And when you're not being your authentic self and instead trying to be whoever else, who other people may want you to be because you're trying to keep them pleased, you're losing yourself. And so you can't even really build your self-worth, nor can you build true, honest connections with transparency and honesty with people. You're always going to feel like people are being, I guess, fake with you, so to speak. That's something else that I started really honoring instead. And so I guess what I want to say is that something to help you with both is people pleasing and with boundaries is that understanding that you're not perfect. Understanding you're only human. Understanding that it's more fulfilling to be your whole self. That at the end of the day is what keeps me grounded in setting my boundaries and being a people pleaser. Because I'll admit every now and then, like I said before, it may feel like it's slipping in. Or I may be faced with a situation to where I feel nervous because I got to say the truth and it may hurt their feelings. But to help me deal with that, I realized that it's best and it honors me to be upfront and to be honest. So I want you to like have a talk with yourself before you say yes to someone. Have a discussion with who you are. Really get to know who you are. And really understand what you value and what's important to you. And what you'd rather have. Like, would you rather have someone to lie to you, to your face, to keep you pleased? And you do the same to other people because you're trying to keep them pleased? Or would you rather people just be straight up and you make the decision up front about them if you want to keep them in your lives or not? And I think that's the scary part is people realize that they may not have certain people in their lives like they want. But you have to ask yourself, would you rather that? Or would you rather have dishonest, inauthentic connections in your life? And I didn't want that. And I'm not an inauthentic person. And I've come to the realization that sometimes I'm just going to be the villain in some people's stories. And if I'm the villain because I was honest, authentic, myself, I set a boundary, I was assertive. If I'm the villain in your story because of that, then I just have to be the villain. And it's like that's the part I think a lot of us are not okay with or maybe uncomfortable with. But the older I've gotten, I've realized that I've become more confident in who I am. And so that's why I said at the start of the show why it's so important to be confident in who you are to do this. Because it's like when you start setting boundaries and stop people pleasing, you're going to get a lot of pushback from a lot of people, especially if you've used to people please them and used to not have boundaries with them. They're going to call you names, look at you like you done lost your mind because you're different now, because you're trying to honor yourself now and not just solely them. Or they're maybe because when you people please, you want people to think you're a nice person. And so now they're not going to think you're a nice person because when you're people pleasing, yeah, they're going to think you're a nice person. They don't know any different. They don't know that you're people pleasing. They just think you're being really nice. And so with that, I realized is that I lost my train of thought. Shit. God dang it. I'm closing it up at the end and I lost my train of thought. But what I was saying, I guess, is that y'all honor yourselves. And what's really the best way to be is to be authentic than to be a people pleaser. Is what I'm getting at. And be okay with not everyone being okay with you. And because I know that I am a truly nice person. I know that I have a kind heart. I know that I don't mind helping anyone. Just don't be codependent on me. I know, and I know these things about me. Once you like really know who you are, you're not going to believe who they say you are. and just look at it, look at it from this point of view that kind of helps me. It's like, I look at it, if they're calling me this, like this person I said was calling me selfish. And I said, I looked at it from their point of view, like, yep, if I was them, I'd think I'm selfish too. I would, because I just want them to do for me. And so now they're not, so they're selfish. I would too. But that doesn't mean that's what you are. And looking at my other connections in my life helped me to realize that. And looking at how I get along with others helped me to realize that. And that's something, and it's crazy how it happened, because right after that incident, I had like 2 or 3 other incidents come up to where, some tough conversations had to be had. And we were able to just talk it through, and bam. And there it goes. It was reconciled. And I remember thinking, like, damn, I wish I could have this conversation with this person, but I don't feel like I can. Because anytime I've ever had to have a real conversation with them, it didn't go well. And in order to protect myself and my peace, I'm not going to keep putting myself in situations or in conversations where it don't go well, and it just causes me disruption to my peace. Because my peace is more important. It's the most important thing. Me caring to myself is most important. And I want you to just really think about that. Like, really get into a point to where you are honoring yourself. Make a list of who you are and be confident in that list. Because I'm telling you, this journey is going to be hard. If you've always been a people pleaser and never set boundaries, it's going to be hard. And you're going to be thrown a lot of slander your way. So I want you to really dive deep into who you are. Honor who you are. Get really acquainted with who you are and what you stand for, what your values are. Get acquainted with that so it can prepare you for any slander that may come your way from you now setting boundaries and you now being, quote unquote, the bad guy. You're going to be the villain, but if you know who you are, you won't let it affect you to where you think you're really a bad person, because that's what's causing you to be a people pleaser. You don't want to be the villain, or you're afraid that you're going to be this way because you maybe don't know who you are. And when you don't really know who you are, and you've only known how to people please others, that means they have some kind of control over you. And it's like whatever they say you are, that's what you are. So you're making sure they say good things because you are essentially codependent on them telling you who you are, making you feel who you are, so you don't hurt their feelings, and so you don't cause them to call you these names. You're caring about what they think, essentially. So to get out of that, care more about what you think about you. Get more in tune with yourself. Like, understand that if you say no to something, you're not doing it out of spite. You're doing it because you really don't have the energy, you really can't, or you really don't feel like it, or you really know that that's not best for you. Whatever it is. Get one with that. And so, I feel like that's all I have for this podcast episode. I hope it was informative for you. And if you have to listen to it again, because I know I said a lot. I haven't had an hour-long podcast in a long time. But I figured this one was going to be covering 2 things. It's going to be pretty long. Because boundaries and people-pleasing, y'all, they go hand in hand. Once you start slowly coming out of that people-pleasing tendency and you're okay with disappointing others, you start setting boundaries, because it's like no going back. I will tell you that. It is no going back. Like, once I took the year off from work and started really, really developing myself, baby, I ain't looked back since. I was like, I cannot get to that place of self-negligence ever again. I cannot get to the place of feeling depressed and down all the time. And it's like, once you get down enough, you like, I'm not going back there. If I got to cut some people off and say no, I'm going to see how it go. If they don't like it, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's something that you have to cope with on your own. It's what I would say to them in my own head. But once you start doing this, practice it. That's what I would say. Practice setting boundaries. Practice saying no. Practice saying, I'll think about it. Or practice saying, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'll get back to you. Instead of giving an answer right away, practice at it. And if whoever has a problem with it, whoever has a problem with your boundary, whoever don't like it, whoever is trying to Whoever makes you feel unsafe when setting a boundary, that is a sign. That's not your cue to people please them more. That is a sign that they really only care about themselves. They don't really respect your boundaries. They don't care to. It's a sign they don't really care about you. So look at that as, okay, it may be okay to lose that person and to not please them. Because pleasing them is just enabling them to not give a damn about me. You know what I'm saying? So once you kind of take the people you please off their pedestals and realize that if you feel unsafe around them with setting boundaries, they're not safe people to be around. You know? So look at it kind of like that way. I hope that all helps. I feel like I have so much more to say. Like I can sit here. I wish I could just have someone, a guest on here, and we just talk about it back and forth, because I feel like I feel like I can talk about this a little more. And I probably will have another podcast on this. I think I do have some people pleasing one down on my YouTube. And if I have anything extra to say or tidbit to go into this, I will post it on my Patreon, which I feel like I am going to have an extra tidbit to say. I always do. And yeah, I have one already on there, a bonus on this. So check it out. Patreon. It's patreon.com/I've been that girl. Patreon.com/I've been that girl. Or just go to I'veBeenThatGirl.net and you'll see Girl for Membership, books, all my stuff on there. I'veBeenThatGirl.net. So yeah, I ain't going to end it right there. That's all I got for this podcast episode, girlfriends. Until the next one. Peace out.